If you like our video, press the like button. And you can even...
Alright, so this is a liquid filled gauge. And that's why you can see all that moisture, or that liquid in there. It keeps it from bouncing around. So what we want to see is, so we can see that we're not producing as much pressure as we should. So we're producing about 1,500. So we're at about 1,400. So now let's rev it up to what we get. About 1,500 at full throttle. Let's see where we're at now. So, same thing. I know a way to change that, to bring that pressure up. Now, I don't recommend that you push the pressure beyond, that's the wrong size. Push the pressure beyond the limits of your machine. Just look mine up, and it actually says that it's supposed to be 1,800. So I'm going to bump my pressure up just a little bit because it should be 1,800 and I'm under. Now, what can cause it to be under is a few things, but this right here is the pressure relief valve, and this is the most likely culprit for why that pressure is low. And we can fix that because there's a spring in here, and that spring is actually there to provide a relief. So whenever the pump makes, in this case, let's say it's supposed to make 1,850 psi. So let's say that it's making 1,850, right? It won't let anything bypass through this relief. But if the pump is making, let's say 2,000, it's gonna bleed off about 150 PSI. And it's gonna do that by pushing the spring in. The spring is rated to, it's set to where it would open at after 1,850 PSI. So if yours is not up to snuff and doing what it's supposed to, this is a simple solution to fix it, to bring it back to where it should be. Again, I don't recommend being higher than what it recommends from the factory, because if you put too much on there, you can cause other issues. There's other components that aren't rated for as much pressure. So that 1850, in my case, is the safe point. Everything that's in the system is rated for at least 1,850 PSI. But everything in the system may not be rated for, let's say, 2,000 PSI. So just understand and really, I just want you to know that and really think about it as far as that part goes. So when we take this out, be careful, because as you can see, there's a spring with a little plunger on it, and the plunger didn't come out. Shoot. So this right here is exactly how it works. So this spring is in there, right? So let's say that it's only making the 1,850 that it's supposed to, right? As soon as it makes more than that 1,850, this is depressed, and then it lets fluid flow past it, and that's what relieves it. Now there are shims that you can get that will fix this. And those shims are as simple as this, right? I'm putting this on here because I'm going to test it. That is, so basically the shims 0.1 millimeters, right? And the one I just put in is definitely more than 0.1 millimeters. But for every 0.1 millimeters, I'm not saying like 1 millimeter, I'm saying literally 1/10 of a millimeter, 0.1 millimeters. For every 0.1 millimeters of a shim that you put in there, it should add about 40 PSI. The shim the washer that I just put in there is going to add, it's just shy of a millimeter, so it's going to add pretty close to 400 PSI. The good news about that is, it's going to put me right close to that 1850. I might be a hair above it, but I'm willing to live with a little bit above it. I'm not going, 200, 300, 400 PSI over what it's rated for, and that's okay. Now let's say that this doesn't fix it and this doesn't bring it up, right? And that means that there's a relief valve, or there's a relief valve in this valve body that's up there mounted for the loader, and that's very possible. And if there is, we'll check that out next. Now, start this back up and we'll try it again. So you could see during operation that we actually got up there pretty high. We got up to, so 1500 was what we were at before, and now we're at about 1600. So that valve in the back is not the one that is guilty of robbing our pressure. I'm pretty sure this one right here is. You can hear it on the valve body right here. Whenever we would, what do I do with that? Whenever we would take it to remove, all that's done. Now, the next thing we're gonna do is very simple. We're gonna take this back off again, and we're gonna see if we add another shim, if it increases our pressure. If it does, then that means that this is our only issue, or our only item that is possibly causing us a pressure loss. Oops. Which, you know, even then, you know, 100 PSI adds up pretty quick. So 100 pounds for every square inch is a lot of pressure, right? I'm not gonna say it's gonna give you 100 pounds lifting capacity, but this lifts, well, at 1,850 pounds it's supposed to lift, or 1,850 PSI, it's supposed to lift 920 pounds. So let's just say that, you know, I went to 2,000 pounds. So if I did the math to you know, basically divide 920 by 1,850, it is almost exactly 2 pounds of pressure gives me 1 pound to lift. So if I added 150 pounds or 150 PSI to what it was already doing at 1,850 with the 920, that would actually increase my lift capacity another 75 pounds. And 75 pounds isn't a tremendous amount, but when you're thinking about the grand scheme of things, that's more than almost 10% of what it was originally rated to lift. And so if you get too carried away, before you know it, you're going to be breaking things. And if you ballast well, so like if I put, like I lift round bales with this. So if I put a round bale on the back on the 3-point with the spike, not too big of a deal, right? Because that helps to counter me. But if I don't put anything back there, that is a lot of weight on the front end of that tractor. And all that weight is going to add up and take its wear and tear on those bearings. Hoping they'll stick it to that, but I guess not. All right, so we'll see if this adds anything to us. Let's see what it does. All right, we're back at it. So our pressure went up 100 PSI when we added those shims. So per shim. So we're at 1,700. I'm not going to add any more. I'm going to see where I'm at, because I have a feeling that somehow, some way, I am still getting robbed in here. The better way for me to test it would actually be through these, so I don't have to go through any of the lines, or any of the valves. But I don't have a 1/4 inch adapter, so we're just going to leave it be. Plus I need these. So the plan for these is actually to be able to use my Bale Unroller on this tractor. So, and we're going to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is spread this man glitter around a little bit, clean up some of our mess.